Hey everyone, welcome to the WayScript channel. My name's Derek, and today I want to show you a brief tutorial on how we can consider the market sentiment when purchasing stocks. We'll do this using the Watson sentiment analysis in the WayScript platform. Let's get started. But first we need to talk about what a market sentiment is. A market sentiment is just how an investor feels about a security or an overall financial market. Emotions and psychology can play a large role in the stock market, and if we're able to analyze it, we can make better purchasing decisions whenever we want to buy stocks. We can use the Watson sentiment analysis tool on the WayScript platform to see how positive or how negative the major stock market information websites are about the market. Let's see how we can build this script using WayScript with a daily trigger. Here's the landing page of the WayScript platform whenever you log in. We'll go ahead and click create a new script, and we'll say daily sentiment analysis for the name. We'll click create. There's a variety of triggers on WayScript, but we want ours to run daily. So we'll click the little plus on the add trigger and click the time trigger. We see the default is to run it every day, so let's activate the trigger and change the time to the first thing in the morning. So let's say 8 a.m. That way we get the information before the market opens. Now we need to create two variables. The first one will be the sources we want to do a sentiment analysis on, and the second one will be the scores of those sentiment analysis. We'll click create variable and drag it into our path. Let's make the sources first. So we'll say sources is the variable name, and this will be a list of items, and each item will be a URL. So we need to leave the default of text. Now let's drop down, and we can click the X for each new variable that we want to pass. We'll just use a few sources for this example, but I encourage you to find sources that have information regarding the stocks that you're interested in buying. I've already found a few sources that we'll use for this tutorial, so I'll copy and paste those in. We'll use this variable to store these URLs, and we'll go and pull the information from each of them later on. Now we'll create another variable, so we'll click off of this and drag create variable into our workflow. This variable name will be sentiment scores. We'll make this a list of items again. And the sentiment scores go from -1 to 1, where -1 is very negative about the topic, and then +1 is very positive. So instead of text here, we'll put number, and we'll leave this as an empty list for now. We'll click off. Now we need to loop through each of those URLs to get the text from each of those websites. So we'll go down to the logic and select the loop and drag it in. The variables that we want to loop over are the sources, and we want to loop over each source item. Now we need to say what we want to do with each of those source items. We'll click off of this, go to diffbot, and drag it into our workflow. And what diffbot does is extract text from each of those websites. So let's leave it on the default extract article text, and the URL will be the sources item. We'll let it update, and then we need to select website text. We'll leave this as the default website text variable, and we'll use that in the next module. We'll click off of that. And now we need to drag in the Watson sentiment analysis tool. So the module is Watson, and we'll drag it into the loop. Here let's use the simple sentiment analysis, and then our input text will be the website text from each of the sources that diffbot extracts. We want the Watson module to return us the sentiment score, so we'll select that option, and we can leave that variable as is. So now at this point in our workflow, we have the sources that we want the information from. We're going through a loop, and we're extracting the text from each of those sources, and then we're doing a sentiment analysis on each of them. Once we get those scores, we now need to put them into a list. We'll go down to the bottom of our loop, and we'll drag in a list actions into our loop. We'll drop it here, and now we need to extend that list that we created in the beginning with each of those sentiment scores. We'll select the option to extend list, and then we'll select the sentiment scores list that we created in the beginning. So that one is right here. And now the variable that we want to add to the list is each of those individual sentiment scores. That variable was just sentiment score. So we'll select that one. So now we have a list of all those sentiment scores from each of our different sources. Let's use a quick Python module to take the average of each of those scores. We'll click off the extend list module. We'll select the Python one and drag it at the very bottom outside of our loop and drop it there. Now we can put the code that we want in our Python module. We'll go ahead and expand it. To take the input into our Python script, all we need to say is sentiment scores are equal to inputs, square brackets, and then sentiment scores was the name of our list above. This essentially imports that variable into our Python script. Now, to take the average, we'll say sum of those sentiment scores divided by the length of those sentiment scores. And now to output it, we'll say outputs will be average, and this will just be equal to average. So we're taking the input of that list, doing a quick calculation using Python, and then putting it right back into our workflow. We'll collapse this, and now all we need to do is to run our workflow. We'll go up and click Run Main. We see the result that we get is negative 0.057. So that just means that those websites are largely unbiased about how the stock market will do today. If this average was closer to -1 or +1, it could influence our potential stock market decisions for that day. Since we're running this workflow daily, there's a lot of different ways we could deliver this information here at the end. We could send it as an email, we could send it as a text message, and much more. Of course, we're not financial advisors, so don't just use this technique. Instead, use this technique along other techniques to make informed stock market decisions. If you have any questions or comments, as always, please let us know. Until next time. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd like to sign up for WayScript, you can click the link in the description and sign up for a free account. If you'd like to see more tutorials like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel.